Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Son of Grace podcast, where every single week we do our very best to help you, our church family, dive deeper into community so that no one walks alone. Just the two of us today.
Just the two of us again. Yeah. Dusty's out on excursions and
So he's out on upgrades. He's running some upgrades
for Easter. Love
for Easter, which we're super excited about. That's probably the biggest thing happening in the life of the church.
Yeah. What a weekend we got.
What a weekend. What does Holy Week weekend look like for a pastor of a growing movement of God's people?
Busy, but with the team, it's been great. So it's great. So Friday night we have communion, and that's always fun to get some of our elders, especially, up on stage and teaching, and so they're gonna be helping me with that. So if you don't have plans Friday night, man, make plans right now to come, and it's gonna be great. We reenact the last night that Jesus had with his disciples. If you've been watching The Chosen, keeping up with that, we're
basically chosen light,
and it'll be great. So we reenact those three main elements that Jesus had with his disciples: a love feast. So we invite everyone to bring something and bring a dish to eat a lighter meal together with, and then we'll stop and we'll probably have some testimony time, which is always great to hear from our church people as far as what's happening in their life. And then we do something really unique, and this is our weird thing that our family does as church.
but I do love it.
It's great. We do foot washing. It's not something that is mandatory. If you come and choose not to do that, there's a place where we're going to be worshiping in the sanctuary the whole time during that, so you can just stay there. But if you want to take you or your family or friends and partake in the foot washing element, it is a really sweet time. Of just being able to speak a blessing over people as you do it, pray for them, and just serve them in that way. It's really cool. And then you come back and we'll all partake in the bread and cup at the end. So that's Friday night communion service. So it's special.
And where does that come from in our fellowship? This week we've been talking about our story and a little bit about our story here at Grace, Centerville Grace. But the Charis Fellowship, the bigger part of the community that we're from, what are some of the origin stories about this idea of the love feast? If you know, it's...
I think it traces back to the Anabaptist lines, and we see the John 13 passage when Jesus basically says, "I've set this an example for you to do." We take that literally as far as, hey, this is probably the most or the best way to teach what Jesus was trying to get across. And so we always challenge people, if you can come up with a better way to teach what Jesus was teaching, then we'll do that. But I don't think we have found one. So that's really the origin of that, I think, more than anything. But more recently, I discovered that our fellowship of churches would practice just the bread and cup normally throughout the year, but as a collective, like regionally, the churches would get together and then they would practice this threefold communion together.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's what really made it kind of special and unique. It's when we can gather with other churches to do this. So.
Do we have any plans to gather with other churches yet? Is there a scheme there? Is there... Maybe
we don't have any really local churches, but we'll.
And I was thinking of that one up in North Dayton.
We do have some up north of us, and so maybe. Yeah. Actually, I thought about with our mutual friend Jeff Cartwright at one point.
That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Like that. But all that to say, it has historical roots in our fellowship. It really does what I think communion is supposed to do. It's supposed to not just help us remember, but it really helps us to remember together, to bind us together as one family.
I like what you said there, the threefold communion, right? Because oftentimes, if you grew up in the church like I did, or like you did, communion was just the bread and cup, and it was super simple and kind of outside of our tradition here. That's what most churches do. But that threefold, I think, really gives a complete experience. And I will say that as a father and a husband, I value the feet washing more than I thought I would. It's quite the moment, and the kids remember it.
They do, right? Yeah, it's something tangible that they can do together, and it's cool. Yeah.
One of the other things that's worth mentioning is you think about your calendar and what that looks like. Easter Sunday, we're doing our regular service times, 9 and 10:30. And if you're listening to this podcast, chances are good you are one of the core members of our church.
Core faithful. If you're listening to this, chances are
You're in it. So, we just want to ask that if you have any capacity to do so, put others first. Nope.
Yeah. Put yourself second.
By going to first.
That's right.
I knew there was a
I
touching
know.
limerick there. I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
What happens is on Easter, a lot of the families gather and we get a lot of guests and it's very full. And since the second service, the 10:30 service is already a little bit fuller anyways, if you could consider coming to the 9:00, we would be forever in your debt.
Very helpful. We're going to have baptisms, at least 3 or 4 at each one. So you're not missing out if you come to first. We're going to have a full plate there as well. So it's just going to be a great time.
I don't know if you heard or not, but a young man who I met at the gym, who's been visiting our church a little bit,
I heard,
has decided to get baptized this weekend, and
that's exciting.
It's really
yeah.
Yeah. This is why we do what we do. And so Easter is always exciting. Here's the $1 million question. Have you decided what you're going to wear for Easter yet?
I've not. No. Surprise. No.
It's the Super Bowl. So,
it is.
I do. It's probably the one weekend I put a little bit more thought into what I'm wearing.
Yeah. What are you going to wear?
Karen got me a little quarter zip gray cardigan.
Oh, okay.
I'll probably put on a pink undershirt underneath that and kind of Easter it up a little bit.
Yeah. I generally go to Kohl's this time of year and see if I got a good deal. if I can find something. Mix it up. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about the sermon this week. I was
you were up.
I was up and I loved it. I love this story sermon series because it's a reminder of how much we are a part of something bigger.
Yeah.
I think it might be helpful for the church family for you to share your story here, because there are probably a lot of people that don't know. You've been here for 17 years.
Yeah.
Tell us the origin story, how you got here.
Well, 18 now.
18.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, what's the date?
March 1st.
Okay. So 18 years.
Yeah.
Tell us the origin story about how you got here and about how you came into this current role, because I actually enjoy this story quite a bit.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So back in 2007, Beth and I were in Indiana, still basically kind of stuck at our college town, looking for work, and Centerville Grace called. And
now that term "called" is more than just a phone call, right?
No, literally.
It wasn't like call the pastor.
No, I had put a resume in a while back and did not hear anything.
Never mind then. Continue.
I know. It's not as spiritual. But the senior pastor at the time had my resume, but it kind of sat on the corner of his desk for a while. But eventually he called me, and so we came down to check out this church. I was also interviewing at a church in Indiana locally where we were living and worshiping at that church. And so at that time, they were going to be offering me a part-time life group leader, pastor job. But this job also opportunity opened up for the youth and family job. And so we came down here to check it out.
Now, to set the scene, you came down here. What was here when you got here?
Yeah. So when Beth and I came here, certainly the addition was not on yet. A lot of the changes hadn't happened yet. So it was fairly older, traditional style looking church back in the day. But you would think of maybe as your grandparents' kind of church.
Sure.
Not to.
That doesn't diminish what it was, right? Yeah, absolutely. Churches have seasons of life.
Yeah, really solid. Some really solid families here. About maybe 60, 70 people. The youth group was, maybe 10 to 15 kids if everyone came and brought their friend kind of thing. It was just a
little pastor math there.
Little different than it is today. But we got here and, Beth and I just, we came and we saw it, and it was just a lot different than I was used to growing up. I came from a mega church, and so it was just really different, and just didn't feel at that moment that this was what God was wanting us to do. And so I actually said no to this church, and I said yes to the church in Indiana, and that that didn't sit well in my heart very well. God did not give me peace about that. And so I eventually had to change my answers, and we said yes to coming down here. And we're glad we did. We did. We came down here in '07 and started March 1st as the youth and families pastor for 2 years, and grew that group to about 16 instead of 15. It was interesting time, but the senior pastor resigned after 2 years. Sam was
Unexpectedly, right?
yeah. I mean, I knew coming in, that was one reason why we didn't say yes initially. We knew that he just was having struggle. He had struggles to get really traction with his leadership. And so after 2 years, he kind of basically said, I think I need to be done. And so Beth and I were actually in the hospital. Sam was just born the day before when he announced on that Sunday that
Wow.
I knew he was going to do that. We just weren't able to.
Yeah, of course.
Anyways, eventually the elders asked me to not put my resume out because I was thinking about maybe leaving too because they really couldn't afford two people. But they asked me to stick around and just kind of wait it out. And that's when Pastor Ned, who was here for a long time, offered to help. And then we ended up merging churches just a few months later with a fellow Charis Fellowship Church in Springboro, Miamisburg. And that really gave us the
And that's where the Lovewells came from.
That's where the Lovewells and
Some of our incredible church families.
Katie,
Yeah.
Yep. And the Woolen Webbers and so they came, and that really gave us an influx of youth, but also a more outward focused church. And so we did the whole Brady Bunch thing, if you remember that show, 2 families under one roof. And they asked me to be the lead pastor. It was Sam Grice actually in one of those meetings of how is this all going to work meetings. Sam kind of basically said, I think this is only going to work if Dave is going to be the lead pastor, which took me by surprise because I was very young.
Sure.
And I was like, wow. But to have that level of confidence given by him to me was something that I'll never forget, and it means so much. And so from there, man, yeah, we're growing basically 15% a year on average up until COVID, of course, and that kind of changed some things. But we did a lot of renovations, both in our buildings as well as systems, and just kind of we're trying to really become more of an outward-facing church, and be a part of this community where prior it was a lot of people coming in outside of Centerville to Centerville here more than it was a local church community.
That's incredible.
So God has always been faithful. Our story is what Sam said. God always brings the right people and the right resources at just the right time. It just over and over again. I could tell you story after story of just like when we were needing something, it just like, God was there to provide. So
it's interesting to me, the themes, as I was diving into the story of the church, like how the themes never ceased. Like they were pretty consistent throughout the years, and that's fairly remarkable to me. And I love that about our church.
Yeah. I would say even up to today with staff, like having you here, having Dusty and Jen and Casey and Holly, and Hank, and just the right people at the right time. It's just been so awesome. And when we do projects like our latest one in 2019, it was like $1.7 million, and we're not that big a church, but
right.
God was so faithful, and we had some great senior saints who were longtime members of our church, and over that time of building, some of them passed away and left a decent amount of like a surprise. We get a phone call like from a lawyer saying, hey, they wanted to give you this much as part
What's that, of a tweet?
No, it's something planning. It's
estate planning.
Estate planning, yeah. Bequeath is maybe a word you could use, but that's not the word they used. But they had Centerville Grace as part of their.
That's awesome.
And so, wow, I was like, wow, so honored and so humbled. It just seemed like the right time. Things came along. It just was so cool to see God's hand and faithfulness of our people over the years is great.
That's one of the things we've been praying about a lot lately with the Thrive campaign.
Yeah,
is like, how do we? We're kind of dependent upon what God is going to do through His people here in this community, and we're over halfway there. We're almost to 2/3, and we're really praying for that next little
Yeah.
lurch forward. And it's crazy. Faithfulness in uncertain times,
Mm.
especially uncertain economic times, is always a challenge. How do you stay faithful when it feels like the world, not so much here at our church, but the outside world feels chaotic?
Yeah, well, I think making those pre-decisions are so important, that you decide ahead of time that, hey, this is what we're going to choose to give. This is what we're choosing to serve, and all those things. No matter what comes, this is what we're going to be giving. And I think that is something I think has held us to, like, yeah, we're going to stay faithful because we made this promise. You know, God has been faithful to us. We made this dedication commitment to Him, and
Mm.
we're gonna stick through this no matter what comes. We're gonna hold on to that. Yeah.
Over the weekend, we dove into John 4, and
Yeah.
specifically the bottom part of John 4, where the Samaritan woman takes her testimony. She leaves the water jar, she takes her testimony, she goes back, and many Samaritans believed because of her.
Hmm.
When you think about that text, what are some of the things that kind of that jumped out to you that you might highlight if you were talking about how to use our story to reach others?
Yeah, I was thinking about every person's story is like maybe like a little stone, right? And we
Mm,
think, wow, I can't do much with a little stone. But when you start adding all those stones together, or you start weaving, if everyone's story is a little thread, but you start adding all those threads together, you can create a crazy narrative, just meta narrative of God's faithfulness and what God is doing. And I think that's where the power comes from. And the more that we share our story, I think the greater the larger story gets for people. Like, it makes more sense, and it just has that weight to it. So I think the power there is when we're all doing it, not just one of
yeah.
us. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's always struck me is that we never know what part our story plays in God's bigger story.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
whether that's R as in like Dave and Tony, or whether like R that's Centerville Grace, or the Charis Fellowship, or the Dane Disciple Makers Network, or like all of these things kind of weave together, and we
Yeah.
just don't ever get to see. Um, let's say that you're a control freak like me.
Let's say, for
Let's
example.
say,
Yeah.
for example, I would not say that for you, but I would say that for me. Um, um, how do you deal with not knowing where you are in God's story?
My goodness. See, I feel like I do sometimes know where I'm at in God's story, but uh,
But you don't know the whole picture.
I don't know the whole picture, but I do know where things are headed, and I do know where ultimately how the story ends.
Sure.
So I had to ground myself in that. So again, that whole joyfulness and hopefulness
Yeah.
and thankfulness, I think that helps ground you. Like, you know what God has been doing in the past and has how He's been faithful, and we know what He's doing in the future, and we even know what He's doing right now. I think this is the communion piece of all of this.
Yeah. That's
It's the
good.
future ministry, it's the present ministry of Jesus, and the past ministry, and we ground ourselves in all of that. So yeah, I don't know the details of everyday life. I don't know what the stock market is going to do tomorrow. I don't know what my
Mhm.
401k is going to be in a 6 months from now. But I do know the grand narrative story. I know how He's been faithful in the past. I know what He's promised in the future. I know what He's doing with me today, and what He wants to do with me today is form me into more of His image. And so, if I can take all that, that's enough information
Yeah.
for me to say, yeah, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. Yeah.
This is where memorizing scripture is really helpful for me.
Sure.
Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is always a good one. Trust
Yeah.
in the Lord, lean not on your own understanding.
Yeah.
Or Matthew 6:34 is another one that's,
Yeah.
don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough trouble of its own.
Yeah.
So I think some of those things, right? Grounding yourself, that walk of faith is really a lifetime of disciplines.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's why the power of the story is so important. Um, it's knowing God's story, and knowing how you intersect in that story is it's just key. It's knowing God and knowing yourself. Ultimately, that's what life is, isn't it?
Well,
Just every day. I was just thinking about this. Every day you got to wake up and remind yourself of who you really are, and who God is. Who is God? And then if you get those two things set in your mind before you get your feet hit the floor, you're off to a much better start than most people in this world. So I think if you can do that and understand your story and God's story and how they combine, that's
Solid
gold.
gold.
It's gold. Yeah.
And then, every day after that is remembering.
It's a reminder. Just a reminder. You're
That's right.
reminding yourself of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this weekend, Easter, a lot of our church family took home the Easter invitations.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's say they're listening to this. It's Wednesday afternoon.
Yep.
They've got that invitation in their car, probably stuffed in the visor, which is a common place to stuff it.
Yep.
And they're thinking about how to give it away.
Yeah.
What's the number one piece of advice you're going to give them?
I would say when you make the ask, if you're going to make the ask, make it say, "Hey, I'd love for you to come and sit with me with Easter, like be a part with me," kind of thing. Like you're not coming alone. You're not going to be on your own. Like I want you to be with me all the way through this and walk with somebody all the way through this. So take the invite, make some cookies if you want. Bake some cookies. Go to your neighbor's house tonight, this evening, or tomorrow, and say, "Hey, I was thinking about you," and just. Easter's such a special time. I don't know if you're doing anything for Easter, but I'd love for you to sit with me at Easter at our service. The lead pastor is amazing. Not really, but
I think so.
not so much. But you offer that invitation to be with them every step of the way. Have them over for lunch if you want to do that after. Just make them feel loved and a sense of belonging. I think is so important that they're not going to be just another invite or they're going to be on their own on a Sunday morning. You're going to be with them because no one walks alone, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is there is no perfect time.
There is no perfect time. No.
To invite someone to something that you feel awkward about inviting them to. So I would just say this, be bold in it, be bold in your expression of it.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, you don't have to solve all their problems.
Nope.
You don't have to understand it all. If they give you a quick yes or a fast no, it's okay, right? Your job is to be bold, to be faithful. So,
yep. I'm designing this Easter message for more of the skeptics. So, yeah.
You want to give a teaser?
Yeah. So the title is going to be Beyond Responsible Doubt, the Evidence for Easter. And we're going to talk about all the often the naturalistic arguments against the resurrection. Like they got the wrong tomb, or he wasn't really dead, or this came really later. Like we're gonna flesh all that out and how all of those can be really easily debunked when you do good science on the evidence that we have.
It's good.
So it's going to be solid. So hopefully, and then ultimately end with the implications. If it is true, then what does that mean? And then we'll have like at least 4+ baptism, I think.
It's the best day of the year.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
I actually like Easter better than Christmas.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Christmas, it's great, but
it's not Easter.
It's not Easter. Dead things come to life, man. And Easter, love it.
Come on. Well, guys, that's our podcast for today. As always, if you need anything from us, we're embarrassingly easy to find. Tony or Dave at centervillegrace.org. You can still email Dusty even though he wasn't here. And remember, no one walks alone.